Wiped phones. Let's start there. So you dive back into Flint. You're still going because the charges are bullshit. We got nothing. You're still going. You're deep in it. What did we learn? Let's talk about destroyed evidence first.
What we learned was top officials in former Michigan Governor Snyder's administration, the governor who was charged with a misdemeanor, by the way, their phones were erased shortly before the launch of a Flint criminal investigation, including his press secretary, Sarah Werfel. You know, press secretary presumably spoke with the governor from time to time, speaks on behalf of the governor. She told prosecutors, when I left my job right before the criminal investigation, my phone was wiped. I spoke with state officials who said that is not standard at all, particularly with a looming investigation coming. We also found out that top officials in the health department, including Dr. Eden Wells, who was charged with involuntary manslaughter, when prosecutors got her phone, they were mysteriously missing messages from all of 2014 and through October 2015. People in Flint know those dates matter. That was the entire period Flint was on the Flint River. The chief, the deputy director, the number 2 at the health department, same thing. No messages on his phone, all of 2014, all of 2015. The first messages that pop up are 2016. We also found out that environmental officials at the environmental department, allegedly, their phones were dropped off at IT, quote, wiped clean, shortly after Governor Snyder's October 2015 press conference in Flint, finally acknowledging that Flint's water was toxic and we're moving Flint off the Flint River. So you have across the board, multiple departments, phones either completely erased or not completely erased, but messages from the key Flint River usage period disappearing. And
this becomes clear to you from work product that you've obtained from the prior investigators, Todd Flood and the Arena, the special prosecutor that Schuette impaneled, correct?
Correct. So we obtained documents from that investigation.
So they knew that the phones were wiped clean. So when we're treated later, we got this great big hoo-ha in Michigan when Nessel comes in. We found a box in the basement and we found some phones. That wasn't lost on the prior administration, was it?
No, my reporting indicates that was all theater, and they had most of that, most of what was in the boxes. But it seemed like they were looking for a reason to get rid of Flood, and they used that to do it.
We'll get to that in a second. Wow. Another big piece of your story, very good story. Where do they go to theintercept.com to get it? What's the title of it?
It's also on the Detroit Metro Times, the only Michigan outlet that seems to give a damn these days.
Yeah, as long as you do all the work and, you know,
correct.
They pay you like $5. Like nobody's doing shit. Flint fuckers. We're going to have a parade for you in Flint. And I know why you're doing this. You're doing this because it's still not too late to push and maybe get some justice. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen.
And Charlie, can I just say, I know you're supposed to be a reporter and a neutral robot. Yeah. I'm doing this because, frankly, this is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. You cannot point to anything that is more multi-layered than this, that had real life and death consequences, a cover-up, governor's office, multiple departments, frankly, the AG's office. I mean, it's a striking cover-up that I can't even get the Michigan media to cover, much less the national media.
You were going to say, Karen?
I was going to ask a question because Tariq, who is an avid listener and supporter of the show, is asking that shouldn't the information have been somehow maintained from the phones in the cloud, or, even the phones may have been wiped clean, but isn't there some documentation record of this information somewhere else, perhaps?
Great question. Sarah Werfel, the press secretary, told the special prosecutor she didn't know if she had an iPhone backup. And I found out from other sources that a lot of these phones did not have an iCloud backup.
Really?
I have reached out to the Attorney General's office, the current one. I've asked questions about, was there forensic retrieval? Because you technically can retrieve things. All I get is there's an ongoing criminal investigation.
I mean, didn't they?
It would be encrypted somewhere. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brett.
Go ahead, Red.
Well, what I was going to say, can't they go to the phone company? Ain't that how they got Kwame's text
Well,
message?
that leads us to the next question, which is this. In the story, you got to read the stories. I can't do everybody's homework. You got to read them, man. You're part of the program. You will. I know you will, because you're a bright, bright man. There was questions of whether, like, Snyder and other people in the administration were using a secret server, right? So,
Yep.
Flood wants records from the governor on these questions we're having, correct? So he draws up a search warrant. Is this correct?
I don't know if he drew it up. I do know that he lobbied Schuette to allow him to push for, petition a judge for a search warrant.
For what material specifically?
So Snyder was refusing to hand over his daily briefings, the governor's daily briefings he received from the environmental department, Flint water conference calls, the notes from those. I mean, across the board, his cell phone, major things. The governor was basically stonewalling. We're not talking for 6 months, 3 years. But the attorney general at the time, Bill Schuette, who happened to be running for governor, told him, no, you can't issue a search warrant on the governor. You have to go through the governor's lawyer to get these things, which is absolutely not how criminal investigations work. If they don't honor subpoenas, you seize the evidence. And by the way, to Nessel's credit, when she came in, pretty quickly, they issued a search warrant and seized Snyder's phones. So for 3 years, that could have been done 3 years prior. But it seems to me, and from many sources I've spoken to, the criminal team's hands were tied because Schuette was playing politics.
But they already had Snyder's phone. So they already had Snyder's phone, just to clarify that. But it's all this ancillary stuff that Schuette likes to say he played no politics here, but he did.
Well, I would say if you're not allowing them to, seize documents and you're mandating that your top prosecutor, who's supposed to be independent from you, go through the governor's army of attorneys for things. Yeah, I would say that's a little political rather than how a criminal investigation works.
Now let's go to the second to last question I have, which is Nessel takes over. There's a racketeering case being laid out. This is the bankers and the lawyers. These are the ones we can't get our fingers around them, folks. We can't. So some people are charged. The emergency man, who was charged? Jerry Ambrose with false pretenses?
So Darnell Early was charged. He was a Flint emergency manager. Gerald Ambrose was charged.
So let me explain to people. Let me explain to people what that was. The false pretense was this. We need $100 million to go through with this water district, right? But we're going to need a fucking reason to get $100 million because we're not allowed to borrow because we're Flint and we're broke and we're under emergency management. So they come up with, this old lagoon over here by the old water treatment plant is full of couches and cement and stuff. We got to clean it up. It's going to take $10,000 to clean it up. So they use that excuse to borrow $100 million and they never cleaned up the fucking lagoon. That's the false pretense, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why does Nessel drop the false pretenses? Because that's going to be the predicate, the beginning of a racketeering case that's going to be coming.
Right. Well, first of all, we should start real quick. Nessel, I think 2 months into her term, did an interview. I think it was on Michigan radio. She said that she had never seen any charges related to the KWA pipeline. Either she wasn't reading the documents in the investigation or she never spoke with Todd Flood before she fired him. But as we just said, 4 officials were charged related to false pretenses for the KWA. So during a radio interview, she either lied or misspoke. But it seems to me she's a smart cookie. She claims she never heard anything about the KWA charges. That was number one. Number two, when she dropped all the charges in 2019 against Nick Lyon and 7 other defendants, those charges included those financial charges against the 2 emergency managers, Howard Croft and 1 other person. When she brought charges back, some were heavy, including against Richard Baird, but when she brought charges back against the same emergency managers and the same Flint public works director, she did not charge them again. Mysteriously missing was the financial fraud charges.
Why?
And I've spoken with people in the state of Michigan, familiar with the criminal investigation, who say Well, if that even went to pretrial, if bond fraud went to pretrial, you got J.P. Morgan underwrote those bonds. You got Wells Fargo underwrote those bonds, heavy-duty investors all over it. They could ask for their money back. They could demand their money back. And who would be on the hook if you have an all-out, fleeing of the bondholders? The state of Michigan, who approved it.
So we get nothing. So there's no justice. You can't stop. And I'm sorry, you can't stop the criminal element from continuing on doing what they're doing, because what they're doing is so financially reckless, you can't bring in the justice, and they go out there and continue to do what they do.
It's a basic conflict of interest. The state of Michigan, who's supposed to be prosecuting justice, if they prosecuted certain justice, as in financial crimes, they could stand to be on the hook for, you're talking hundreds of millions, possibly more than that. So there's a basic conflict of interest. And by the way, Andy Arena, on record, I think it was to the Detroit News, said at the time the whole team was fired, they were 6 months away from further financial charges.
He said it on this program.
Yep.
Oh, okay. On your program, yeah.
So if there's a conflict of interest there, like you just laid out, isn't there another agency or somebody else who could pick up that case federally?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't particularly, I have no skin in the game. The first investigation did a damn good job from everything I've seen. So you could re-empower them. But secondly, the FBI was supposedly investigating this. The Department of Justice was supposedly investigating this. I've reached out to the House Oversight Committee, now democratically controlled, because I think perjury is still a crime, Charlie. And everything I've seen in my reporting, Governor Snyder perjured himself in 2016. They gave me some mealy-mouthed answer that they're closely monitoring the state investigation. I mean, it's all a bunch of bullshit. And I will say, so people really get it. Can you imagine, Charlie, if in January 2020, February 2020, March 2020, before the coronavirus went public, can you imagine if a story came out that Snyder's health director, top officials, his press secretary, or anybody close, Trump's health department director, Trump's chief of staff, Trump's press secretary, their phones were erased or their messages were disappearing? The media would go absolutely nuclear, rightfully so. But because I guess this was 7 years ago and it's in Flint and it's, Governor Snyder is long in the past, they don't seem to care that nobody has refuted this. The health department literally said to me, we don't care to comment. That's as close as a journalist to you got us.
Go fuck yourself and go fuck yourself. Right? Because nobody's going to do anything. So look, we've got a 2-bit settlement pushed by the governor, pushed by the attorney general. Our foil. You worked for NBC. You've been around the country. How fucking deep of a cesspool is Michigan in terms of the quality of governance and honesty and bringing people to task?
As you know, I haven't been everywhere, but I would rate this number 1 in terms of corruption, even outweighing some of the southern states that are, corruption's embedded. I mean, the governor's office is shielded from FOIA. The attorney general's office apparently doesn't have to even provide the evidence. That's another thing. They did this through a one-man grand jury, Nessel's team. It's rare that that's even used in Michigan, very rare. We don't know what evidence they provided. I have no idea, as a journalist, if they presented any of the evidence we just reported. Because if they did present that to the judge, is there a reason more officials weren't charged with tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice? And that begs the question also, Charlie, to the common sense person, because you always talk about common sense. How did the governor not know his press secretary's phone was erased? How does the governor not know top health officials, their phones are, altered with no messages? And
how is the woman that was giving advice to Snyder and his team now the communications director for Nessel, the attorney general? How is it the bond lawyer that put the whole stinking scheme together, now Whitmer's budget director up in Lansing? That's what we're talking about. That's the goddamn shame. And enjoy the $1,000 you're going to get, Mr. Flint, if you could prove with that mining machine that they're scanning you with that you got some lead in your teeth.
Right.
Bullshit. Jordan.
And by the way, Nestle's communications director wasn't just like giving advice. She was in the trenches with the Snyder administration, pro bono, they say, doing damage control, crisis communications, and feeding them how to spin this. That's Kelly Rossman McKinney, known in Michigan as the preeminent spin artist, PR person.
I have the documents, and look, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to let you go, and we're going to keep tight and keep on together. Here's the prediction. Nothing's going to happen. This whole shit's going to get tossed because Nestle didn't use what's called the tank team, ladies and gentlemen. And what a tank team is this. It's a third party that goes over the documents that the accused are supposed to give because there's such thing as attorney-client privilege. And if you start stepping on that, the whole thing gets thrown. Mark my words, man. This thing's gone.
And I just want to say to finish, I know you journalists are supposed to be robots and not share any opinions. The Detroit Free Press is a disgrace. The Detroit News is a disgrace. Flint Journal is a disgrace. It is. I've been to Flint 17 times. I don't need a pat on the back. I care. Detroit Free Press is an hour down the road. Same with Detroit News. Flint Journal was supposedly the hometown paper. They will not cover these bombshells. They won't even do a short write-up. I was told today by the Detroit Free Press editor, investigations editor, thanks for sending. We'll let you know if we're going to follow up.
Okay, that's okay, because you know what? We did it here. You're doing God's work, brother. Karen, last word.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jordan, you've got a lot of fans that are watching. Can you, for those who are not familiar with your YouTube channel, website, can you share that so that they can continue to follow your work on this matter?
That's why I like you better than Charlie Karen.
Fuck you, man. I introduced you to Flint.
Share.
YouTube.com/status coup. YouTube.com/status coup. That's COUP. And we're on Twitter @status coup.
Subscribe and throw them a couple bucks too, because it's not free.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we only reason I've been able to go to Flint many times is because we have a really loyal viewership who we have a paid membership. So that's statuscoup.com/join. $5 a month.
Last time, Jordan, because I was very impressed, with what I think good work deserves good support. So,
thank you.
Certainly.
And Charlie has also been extremely helpful to me learning the ropes on Flint.
Charlie's a good guy. Don't tell him we said so, but he's a good guy.
Fuck that guy. All right, brother. Thanks for your time, man. Talk soon.
Thanks, Ben.